Welcome to the Nexus Unloaded podcast. This is Will Crozier.
And I'm Zac Congonis. We are here to bring you the best solutions to your lifting problems. Through our real-world experience, we hope to break things down in a digestible, applicable, and entertaining way.
Okay.
I've repeated it on multiple occasions downstairs already to people, but I'm just really excited by this. Jordan is a woman. Our nutrition coach Jordan is a woman of many different skills. She's constantly surprising me. She does random drawings, she does illustrations. She's fantastic copywriting, obviously a great coach. She played 2 different musical instruments. Obviously...
On a completely unrelated note, Zac, Mickey has no favourite.
I don't.
Yeah,
no
not
favourites.
at all.
Not at all.
I've been told this, however. I believe she's lying.
Jordan, you all have favourites in different things,
okay.
But Jordan just constantly amazes me. She'll just throw something out there. I'm like, what the fuck? Where does this come from? So she's thrown another one out there. Jordan makes gingerbread houses over Christmas. So on Boxing Day, it's a tradition of hers to make gingerbread houses. And I'm just so impressed by that. She sent me through some photos and videos of it, and I just think it's the coolest fucking thing. They're just videos and stuff like that. Oh my God, there's one here with a penis.
Lovely.
It's a gingerbread man with a big black cock.
What's that? That's the start of is that the first thing off the list for our Nexus Christmas?
What, phallic gingerbread houses?
Just gingerbread houses in general. It doesn't have to be that.
I said to her, in addition to making a gingerbread house this year, you must also make a gingerbread gym. She said challenge accepted. So we'll see what 2022 gingerbread gym and gingerbread house
it says gingerbread.
Gingerbread.
They'd be the same though. From the outside, it's just a building.
I'll make we'll see what we can do.
Unless she's going to flesh it out with bench presses and
she
squats
puts
and
in
stuff.
little penguins and Maltesers and a little walkway bridge and everything.
Pressure's on.
Wait, penguins, Maltesers, and a walkway bridge. What scene are you describing?
I'll have to I don't want to show it. It's
pretty
kind of
similar to the gym. Lots of penguins in here. Me.
Yeah, a couple of Maltesers.
Waddling around.
Waddling around. Just between pieces.
But yeah, I don't know. She uses confectionery items as the walkways and little things. You know what I mean?
Which is kind of shocking. You'd assume that in an edible gingerbread house that you wouldn't use edible confectionaries to build it.
Yeah, it's all she used
it needs to be 100%
juices,
edible. You can't,
yeah.
No, I was just taking the piss. Mickey said that surprised, she uses confectionaries. And I was trying to be a douche, but it didn't work.
Yeah, sorry.
Put up my listening game. I've got one podcast.
But yeah, so
I didn't realise we were recording.
Yeah, we are recording.
About 4 seconds ago.
I just think it's so amazing. She's constantly just impressing me. So
all right.
Well
no
done.
need to praise too hard. What's one
when
thing
was
you
the
hate
last time
about Jordan? Bring it down a notch.
What is one thing I hate about Jordan?
Jesus.
Just because at the moment she's a 12 out of 10. We need to bring it back to a 10 out of 10.
I can't think of anything. That's my frustration.
I was about to say too short, but it's kind of too cute. She's cute. She's good.
She's too cute.
Yeah.
Too short.
That's just a low blow. That's an easy one.
Yeah.
God. I was going to bring up something slightly different. On the weekend, Mickey was actually away. Mickey didn't see this, so she's going to be news to you. But I was at a shopping centre and I sneezed. Quite loudly.
How dare you?
I know. Yeah, a couple of years ago would have been absolutely fucking, hung for it. But, I was sneezed. And then this lady, she would have been probably 15 metres away. She was walking, past me, I was seated. She was walking, she was on her phone to somebody, having a conversation while walking. And then as I see, she stops her phone conversation, turns around and she's like, bless you, from ages ago. I was like...
Wait, with that gruff
bless
voice?
You!
Well, she was yelling, so maybe not with as much...
intensity.
As much of that, but what's the appropriate amount? I wouldn't personally stop a phone conversation just to say it, especially from that distance. I feel like it was totally unnecessary. She didn't need to. What's your boundaries for bless yous?
But did you feel special?
Oh yeah, I was like, wow, this lady's gone out of like really out of her way. Like her whole
You'd
day.
already stand out in a crowd as it is, mate.
She wasn't even facing me. She was walking away.
Maybe she's just full of blessings.
Yeah, I feel like
Says
maybe she has kids, something and says it a lot, and then it's just like it's a reaction, like a thoughtless, like in the middle of a conversation. I wonder if that person on the phone call
I
the
don't know,
other
I
end's
feel
like,
like-
I didn't sneeze. Like, what are you
I
talking
feel
about?
like maybe
just
like a
positive
3 to 4
Tourette's.
meter, a 3 to 4 meter radius
Okay.
is like appropriate as a bless you.
Yeah, and if you're on the phone,
Oh, I don't know. I personally wouldn't stop it.
yeah, it seemed a bit too far for me.
Yeah, I
was
personally
just
wouldn't
like-
stop it.
Yeah.
Let's just focus on the positives. What a nice lady.
Oh yeah, I appreciate.
What's
a
your
lovely
boundary?
lady.
What's your boundary, Zach?
Oh, I just don't say it. Fuck him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Another reason why Zach
answer.
is not the favourite because
I mean, it's not
You're my
my
favourite.
job. It's not my job to try and keep your soul in your body when it's trying to
Self-
escape through your nose.
No,
self-appointed HR officer
I align with that.
is
I'm in the same. I'm in the same boat.
If you can't, isn't that why they started it? They believed the sneeze was your snowl. Fuck, a sneeze was your soul trying to escape your body. That's why they say bless you.
Oh, I have no idea.
What, shove
I'm
it
pretty
back
sure that's
in
why
with
it
some
started.
words. Just shove it.
Well,
back
yeah,
in there.
it's like if you can't keep your own soul in, how am I meant to fucking help?
You're beyond gone.
Yeah, exactly. If a sneeze will be your undoing, you need more than blessings.
The other one I wanted to bring up, we've got a few things. a few things.
I've actually realised that I have something to say as well, which
Okay,
is completely
after- I'll go.
irrelevant.
But Mickey made me buy new pluggers on the
Yeah,
weekend.
you're about to experience a blowout, mate.
No, they were completely fine.
Wait.
Like,
What? The fuck's a plugger?
Thongs. Like
Oh,
thongs for your feet.
I thought that was going in a completely different direction.
Jesus.
Like
Yeah.
comps,
No, we're not that
comps
sort of
coming up.
podcast.
No,
Comps
we're not
coming
that.
up. Will has to keep the slow cooked beef in him from squat day. Pluggers, Jesus.
Very beneficial
You
performance.
never heard of the terminology plugger.
Jeez.
Not in relation to things that don't go
Yeah.
inside you.
Okay. Love to see where you do hear
Inside
it then,
something,
in what
plugging
circles you're hanging
something.
around. But yeah, no.
All the right circles.
Yeah, all the yeah, my thongs. The last pair I had that I replaced with that pair was they had holes actually like 100% worn through it, which I said was a benefit to their design because it was like a personal drainage system. Like if it was raining, it would drain out through the bottom and just it's beneficial to its life.
I can't tell you how bad these thongs are. They were nearly at the point of a hole in the bottom. The drainage system
Yeah.
as well as quite
Would have
proud
been good
of.
if I could have got that. Yeah.
So wears through them to that point. But it was more the top. Like, the V at the top. I mean, you probably don't wear thongs too much down in...
You're a sandals guy for sure.
Yeah, sandals.
I'm a
guy.
Crocs guy. Crocs is
Yeah.
superior,
wow.
but we'll leave that there.
Yeah. So the V of the thong where the 2 points meet
Yeah.
and then go down into the middle of the
toe
big
holder.
toe, the toe spacer, they were like splitting in half. And so it was probably like
Still good
I
though,
reckon
solid
probably like a
rubber.
millimeter, like literally 1 millimeter
Hold on.
was
what
holding
brand
these.
of thongs were these? Because if you've gotten to the point where you've almost worn through the rubber, but the actual, the little plug that
Yeah.
holds the V into the thing, if that hasn't fallen out and it's lasted until you've worn through the shoe,
Yeah.
No,
it's the
that
best
doesn't seem
pair
to
of
go with
thongs
me.
to ever exist.
He's
No, it's
had
always-
them. You've had them for years. These
Yeah,
are
they go
they were
hard.
pineapple pluggers. That we
They
got
do-
in
they-
Noosa.
Yeah, I got him to go with my pineapple shirt
Yeah.
and pineapple shorts. I have all the pineapples. But
You have pineapple socks.
yeah, and then I got new ones, and then you have to go through that phase where it rubs on your toes and usually like a little blister, and you have to wear them in. It's just not fun.
So actually, that
moral of
leads
the story
us.
is just keep wearing them until
They literally fall off you.
yeah you cannot physically put them on.
Yeah. So he did throw these in the bin, and he was very disappointed. The next day, he was complaining to me, saying he was going to go bin fishing to get his old pluggers
Yeah, I
back
was gonna go get them.
because he was really frustrated.
Just call them thongs.
Nah. Now that I know that this agitates you, I'm gonna continue to use the terminology of a plugger. Yeah. So that actually leads me. NexusPerformance.com.au/podcasts. I would like to everyone to submit in our podcast feedback form ways that they overcome the initial blister phase of pluggers. Do you have any feedback, any tips, any tricks? Will was going to go on a YouTube.
Just complain.
You wear
constantly.
socks.
God.
But like,
Can't be
you
this-
just
Up
you just
here, it's
jam
fucking
it in there.
hot. It's
Yeah.
getting hot up here,
Complain.
mate.
I just complain constantly. It makes it feel better.
Yeah. Okay.
Especially if Mickey's around to complain to her.
Yeah, I'm just constantly listening to the bitchiness of Will's. And as he gets further and further into prep, he has more and more things to bitch and complain about.
Yeah, everything hurts. Everything sucks. Yeah, it's all good. You know, that's prep. That's what this podcast's about, educating people.
On the
Zach, you had
easiest and
something.
best ways
What's
to
your
complain. So I'll make mine quick.
Okay.
So as you know, we've been attempting to do the dunks, and on last Friday,
Dunk update.
I was a bit bored, so I went on down to the public basketball court, and I was, shooting a few hoops, having some fun. And when I was walking down there was all these kids playing cricket with their families and shit, and there was like this tent of like primary school age girls.
Oh God,
and you know
I
when
don't know
it's
where
like,
this is going.
nah,
I don't
you
like
know when
where this is going.
they yell things at people when they walk past. When
yeah,
I walked
Fucking
past,
dunked on them.
when I walked past, they yelled, "Do you like playing basketball?" And I was like, "I'm not good at it, but I enjoy it." So I
Don't
waddle
talk to
on down.
underage girls, Zach.
Yeah, okay. I waddle on down to the basketball court, and then I'm doing the shots, and the girls come to the edge of the
Oh,
basketball
no.
court, and
Gee,
every time I get a shot in, they scream.
Nice.
And I
Motivation.
shit you not, there was like this game of pickup happening on the other side of the court, and everyone was just losing their shit. And every time I'd miss a basket, it was worse, because they'd go, "Oh!" And this went on for about
And
20 minutes.
You missed probably 9 out of 10.
Oh, I missed a lot of them. See, I had my own personal cheer squad.
Are you any closer to the dunk, though?
It's getting there.
I feel like it's always getting there.
I'm much closer not holding the ball. Now I can jump with the ball in my hand, and my fingers can touch the rim whilst holding the ball.
I'll show you how excited Tank is by your story. I'm just going to move
get,
the camera
like-
over. You can just see here for those watching. This is how excited Tank is.
Oh, so I lose out to the thong story.
Absolutely. But, you know, like how when they're drafting sports players, like basketballs and stuff like that, how like their vertical jump, you know, like a tiny smidgen of a centimeter is like, you know, the difference between making it and earning millions and not making it.
Yeah.
Like, you've still got like a whole basketball height to go. So that's
There's a fucking long way to
a
go.
fair bit.
I'm just,
It's a long way.
I do just hope that you did not talk to these girls too much.
No, Mickey, I'm
Further.
not a paedophile.
Just
Jesus.
about basketball. Just give them tips.
Self-appointed HR, so I
One-on-one
just
them.
have to
Fucking
actually come
smash
in
them.
there as the HR and ensure
Jesus
that
Christ.
no inappropriate comments were returned.
All right, let's get on to today's topic before we go down that route. Jeez.
Before Mickey starts talking about pedophilia.
Yeah, not exactly what the podcast is
Wow.
about.
Wow.
But
Wow.
the question that we have for this week and the general topic it's leading to is I'm thinking about pushing my bench frequency up. How should I go about it?
Stop benching. Just dunk.
Pushing it up.
Yeah, we'll end that there.
Yeah. But, so it's pretty common, though. Pretty common. Like, it's becoming, I want to say more and more popular, but I guess it depends which circle you're in. But, like, you know, leaning towards higher frequencies is becoming a more popular thing, I would say.
Definitely since a couple years ago.
Yeah, for good reason. Like, the more you do something, the more you practice a skill, generally, like, the better you get at it. Lifting weights is slightly different to that because the things that we lift are heavy and they come with that that trade-off of fatigue, and you can only do it so much. It's not like throwing a ball in a certain way or riding a bike or whatever. Like, you can't just do it over and over and over and over and over and over and just get infinitely better at that skill, because there's only so much of it you can do before you just can't do anymore, and it's just negatively affecting you past a certain point. But before we actually tackle that question, we're going to go all around frequency, I think, and tackle the whole conversation of just frequency and everything about it before we kind of link back to this question about how to practically in real life, up your frequency, whether it's on bench or whether it's any lift, is kind of the same principles there. But Zach, do you want to kick us off with a bit of an explanation of frequency, like what is frequency in an SBD skill sense and why it matters for us?
I'd love to, Will. Thank you for handballing me that
Give
question.
that privilege.
So in terms of frequency, the simplest way to explain it is how often you do something in the course of a training week. You'll hear words like exposures, you'll hear words like how many times I've fucking done it, mostly just exposures, but how many times in that given week you're actively doing that thing. So if, say, you're having 3 times bench frequency, it means you're getting 3 different exposures to that movement within the time frame you've set out, normally within 7 days. Some crazy people do like a 10-day week because they like to watch the world burn, and in that case, that's their chosen time frame to do that thing. In terms of why frequency matters, generally, doing more is better if it's within your bounds of recovery. I doubt anyone could argue that doing less wins if you can recover enough to do more, because more exposure generally means
Stimulus
getting
has to
better
match
at
the
outcome.
recovery, and
Yes.
if your recovery is more, then your stimulus can be more, and great, that thing's going to be progressed. Most likely
Then
going
you
to be
get
progressed
extra
better.
yoked.
And you can do, so I could say I need 12 sets, 15 sets of bench to make my bench go up. I've like worked that out. Is like, well, I could bench 15 sets at once in one session and just
That
do
is
like
optimal.
15 sets of 5. Or I could do 5 sets of X amount of reps 3 times a week. And I think people listening to this would agree that the second one sounds a little bit more practically like just doable. Like I doubt anybody in here like this listening would say, yeah, I could slam 15 sets and then I reckon the 13th set would be just as good as that first one. Like I would be completely fine. My shoulders definitely wouldn't be snapping off and I wouldn't be bored by that point. Splitting it up makes the total amount of work that you need to get done just more manageable. Whether that's manageable around like your life and like length of sessions and stuff like that, or whether it's manageable as in like I said, like the actual each one of those sets, like how fatigued you are for one of those sets, and how like by that 13th, 14th set, 15th set, what I meant is that you're going to be so stuffed by that point, and everything's going to be so sore and whatever that like they're not really going to be great sets technically or like strength wise. Like it's just not going to be overly stimulating by that point. So splitting
It
it
goes
up
back
over
to
the
that
week helps a
recovery
lot.
piece as well. Like
Yeah,
if you're
absolutely.
getting that 14th set and it looks like arse and you're pushing shit uphill, then chances are utilizing that frequency to allow yourself to have more quality outcomes over the week is going to be better. Because at that point, is there a point to doing the 14th and 15th set if they just look awful? Probably not.
Yeah, more is not more. Like it definitely has to match recovery. And then recovery, I've done lots of episodes and chats about that, but all the factors that come into that, whether it be, your food and your sleep and your stress management and just all that. But we're going to align our training dose with that, and it's going to give us, we need this much squatting, this much benching, this much deadlifting to progress. And then we're going to split it up practically over a week in a way that makes sense. Like I said, for those other factors there. So frequencies usually a tool just to make the work doable, I'd say. There isn't really, like in theory, a huge amount of drawbacks to splitting it up more. Like if you want to go from 2 sessions of bench to 3 sessions of benches, in most cases going to be great, and going from 3 to 4 is probably going to be great. And then above there, it kind of gets a little bit like less beneficial, but there's still definitely arguments for like, you can absolutely adding more exposures is going to be beneficial, but theory isn't everything. Like practically, it just has to make sense with your life, I think, is one of the big takeaways in this discussion. Has to, you have to actually, like, imagine if I said to you, hey, Zach, bench 6 times a week, you have to go to the gym 6 times a week, warm up 6 times a week, get it done 6 times. It's just a little bit, most people are going to be like, oh, man, that sounds really annoying and difficult and just not really practical based on my life.
Even if theoretically it does work. But just the practical sense of, okay, if you got 15 sets, you're going to bench 6 days a week, you're going to do like 2 or 3 sets of bench a day. So that sounds awful.
Yeah. And then, yeah, absolutely. And then, it's a lot of time sink. There's a big time trade-off to it. And then on that as well, like if we look at the muscular recovery, which is what we usually look, if we went on off from a hypertrophy perspective of frequency and said, hey, training biceps 2 times a week or 3 times a week makes a whole lot of sense, because our biceps from a muscular point of view can recover from those sessions, and then the stimulus is effective, we're recovered by the next session, and we can apply a stimulus again, and so on and so forth, and going to get a lot of benefit from that. When it comes to these skill movements and upping frequency on that, it's not just like when we look at a bench, like we talked about, we're usually not looking at it from a hypertrophy, we're looking at it from a skill, like the exposure of skill, the frequency of how often we can apply this skill and get benefits from it. And it is a little bit about muscular recovery for sure. That's still an absolutely fine way to look at it. But even if you're leaving, say, a couple of days between exposures, like eventually, if you go really high frequency and your intensity really needs to be managed quite well. Like you can't really, more frequency, the less you can fly close to the sun, like push hard, push close to failure, and have your joints, tendons, ligaments, all that sort of stuff bounce back from it. Like if I said bench 6 times a week to you probably get away with it for a couple of weeks. You'll probably feel fine for it. You probably smash it. And then a combination of just like the fatigue if we've gone a little bit too hard, but also like just your joints and tendons and everything are going to cop it, because they're slower to recover than your muscles are.
To like condense that down into one sentence though, the higher the frequency, the lower the magnitude of each exposure. The stimulus has to be lower because at the end of the day you have less time to get your body right for the next bout.
Yeah, exactly. But overall, like it's looking at the overall training week. It's looking at like the total dose and how we can improve or increase that total dose and still have a person recover. That's how frequency is going to be used to our advantage. On the absolute load side of things, we've got people on Team Nexus that bench well into the 200s, up around the 250 mark.
Fuck those guys.
And then we have people that bench 60 as their max. And obviously they're very different shapes and sizes and genders and all that. But there is something to be said about that as well. Like the guy who is benching 250 is probably not going to be benching quite as frequently or as close to failure. The stimulus per session is going to be a little bit lower than the person whose max is 60 and their skill isn't as quite developed yet. That person who is more of a beginner and has less total absolute load on the bar can probably get away with pushing and pushing closer to failure and pushing like more volume and everything than the person benching mid 200s or whatever it is above that. So again, this just comes back to matching stimulus with recovery. But I feel like it needed to be said that, like usually bigger people, stronger people, less frequency, but not always. Depends on what their bench looks like as well. So,
because you have so many pieces that come into that as well. Regardless of the skill, not regardless, but with the skill level aspect, the higher the skill, the higher the output that person's going to be able to output. But even just as you said, there's other personal factors. Like, yes, the larger size of a human does make a difference, because generally larger means stronger in most instances. But then you have people who are slightly more efficient, people who are, a little bit more focused on their recovery. You could have the quintessential bench 54 kilo female with mecha arch and T-Rex arms, who goes out and gets on the piss every night. They can't facilitate the godly amount of bench that they should be able to because of some of those other bits and pieces as well.
Yeah, again, stress factors, recovery factors going to affect their loading protocols, training dose. The phase of training is something that I wanted to talk about here, because we can use this when we're saying that there are a lot of pros to a higher frequency approach. And there are cons to a higher frequency approach, like we've said. It's going to beat you up and it's going to slowly start to tick away at the joints and that if you go too high frequency too long and fly a little bit too close to the sun on that. But it is going to, in an acute sense, you're more exposures to it, so you're going to get better at it from a skill perspective rather quickly. So if you think about like what phases of training require us to have a really high skill threshold that aren't necessarily going to have to be super long, like coming into a comp. So like the last 10 weeks of a prep, or the last even shorter, depending on, but like that peaking phase or the comp prep phase where We want to be really, really, really honed in on that skill. And there's a finite end to it, so we're not as worried about the beat up on the system too much because we know we're going to have a phase after that we can recover and focus on all the other stuff. So during a prep, it makes a lot more sense to not only have higher volume through SBD, but split it up and have higher frequency through SBD so you can be more skillful through those movements, more practice through those movements, more confident through those movements. You're just not going to be able to do that forever. After the comp, pretty good argument, I would say, for pulling back on that frequency. We've talked about off seasons and hitting minimum effective dose for your skill work and stuff like that. Pull back your frequency. Pull back your your average intensity, your average your total volume a little bit on those, and replace it with full range of motion, more hypertrophy bias movements.
And like we said, even with the bits and pieces regarding, yes, in theory, could you keep and maintain that high frequency approach into an off season and still tick boxes and still get the minimum of hypertrophy and work towards those auxiliary goals? Technically, yes. As per the special fancy literature, you probably could, but on paper, just because it can work doesn't mean it should. And like we said before, that psychological toll of, hey, if you're benching 4 days a week, you're squatting 3 days a week, and you're deadlifting 3 days a week, you need a break at some point. And anyone who says, oh, nah, I don't need it, I love squat, bench, deadlift, just give them a couple more weeks or a couple more months, because they'll get to that point eventually, especially when shit starts to hurt and they don't know why, and then they don't understand that, okay, this shit hurts, I'm going to go and do what my coach said before. I'm going to do some lower specificity, not realizing that there's a period of time that if you dug that hole, you got to spend a little bit more time digging back out of it. Like, you can't just flick the switch and undo the fact that you've just written
There's pros and cons to all these phases and all of the stuff involved. You want to be focused more on the hypertrophy stuff when you're further away from comp, and skill isn't as of a priority. And then when you're coming into comp, you want to be focused on skill because that's the priority. You have to perform a 1 RM squat, bench, deadlift on competition day. There's no way around that. So that, taking phases with different intents, where the training program looks a little bit different in regards to frequency makes a whole lot of sense in the practical world. And if you want to go down what you were saying before and almost just be in like comp prep mode, like year round, you can absolutely make progress like that. You can. You could just run like a prep program and get a fair way. Because when we say minimum effective dose of hypertrophy and stuff during a prep, it's not that there's none. Like, you still are going to get bigger and just a bit, maybe a little bit slower over time. And you're going to get good at squat, bench, deadlift. But like I said, it's going to eat away at on your joints, ligaments, tendons. It's going to get a little bit mentally boring. You're going to, again, like, go a little bit slower on the hypertrophy side, which isn't probably going to slow you down in the short term. It's going to be hard to see that. But then over the long term, like we said, I'm a big believer that, like hypertrophy, the guys who are winning comps are usually just happen to be the most muscular people in that weight class a lot of the time. Because the skill threshold, I feel like sometimes isn't as high as what we think. But it's a different conversation. So let's talk, unless you have more to add, let's get away from the theory a little bit and talk on application. So practical, like how would this actual question of like, if I wanted to up my bench frequency from, say, I've been doing 2 sessions of it a week, 2 exposures over a week, and I wanted to go to 3, I think that would be, I've made the call that I think that would be beneficial for my bench and potentially, a way to progress forward at this time. How would we go about it? Because I feel like people, they just will do that. They'll just go like, okay, okay, I'm doing 2, I'm going to go 3, and then just start 3 next week and just add in another session. And then often a slower, more progressional route and like breaking it down a little bit slower over time is a much better way to go about it with less risk and more reward. But that requires a lot of planning. And I've said multiple times, the people at the top of that are usually the best planners, and it rings true here. Like, if you plan this in advance and give yourself a couple of blocks to build up to the higher volume and the higher frequency and all that stuff, that things usually work out a lot better rather than just going like, here's 5 sets of bench just chucked in on a day. I hope this goes well, because it will, it might, but you're definitely rolling some dice, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So-
for me with it, I kind of like looking at the perspective of saying, cool, eventually, if we say, cool, they're currently doing 2, they want to do 3, I'll allocate maybe a block or 2 to work up and get to the place we want to be. First, I'll kind of say, okay, how many days do we eventually want to end up on? A lot of people can't get to 5, so you have that plan and you have that idea of when this is integrated, it's going to be a 5 or a 6 or a 4-day split, whatever you want to do.
Yeah. You've come up with the split in your head and the exposures and what that's going to look like over a week in advance. Okay.
And then slowly gauging into it. Like you said, it's not just about jamming the most aggressive variation possible. It's like if someone's going to 2 deadlifts, it's not like, cool, deadlift day 1, we're going to do deficit. Deadlift day 2, we're going to do pause deficits, and we're just going to make your back regret existing. Generally doing something even as a machine, a regression, something a little bit less
a similar
aggressive.
movement. So in bench, maybe a chest press or something.
Yeah, chest press, anything, dumbbells,
Dumbbells.
machine work, even a shoulder press can work. Anything that limits load to the extent just to see, hey, does this fit into this slot? If yes, carry on progressing. If no, possibly look at adding a separate day or
Yeah, so
something
you're
along
setting
those
up,
lines.
you're giving a more forgiving, like a very forgiving exercise variation that's kind of similar to the movement, similar muscle groups and stuff like that, and putting that in place just to kind of almost get the body like, quote unquote, like ready for it. Like give it a bit of a go and just see how the joints and all that handle it. I like it. And then the other thing, like obviously when people just throw in an extra bench day or whatever, usually whether they're trying to or whether they realize it or not, they often end up it ends up pushing the total volume up significantly. So like they go from doing 10 sets a week just to 15 sets a week instantly, which could work. Again, a little bit of a roll of the dice. I like to take a way more just risk-free approach. And what I'll do is if they're in that boat and going like, 10 sets over 2 days, then I'll split the 10 sets up over the new frequency that we're going to. So if we're going to 3, then we'll do 10 sets of bench over the 3 exposures. So now it might be instead of 5 and 5, it might be 3, 3 and 4. So still the same like total workload, I guess, in terms of sets over the week. It's just split up a little bit more. And that on paper theoretically shouldn't be any harder to recover from, especially if it's in a smart way that you've set up your days and you have enough recovery between them and all that business. But I'll often see from that, like people just, like the progression start moving forward a little bit more, even from that, even though it's technically like the same amount of work and we shouldn't be seeing, just because, those 3, 3 and 4 sets are just more fresh, more like you're coming into those sets fresher than you would if you were 5 and 5 and you were the last 2 sets on those 5 days. Like they're just better sets.
It's just generally more effective work. And I think that's a point that bears repeating just because, yes, frequency and volume as things that we can alter are definitely linked, but they're not linked linearly. Just because one goes up, it doesn't necessarily mean the other one has to go up in tow. And a lot of people will fall into that trap where, they'll just keep raising everything. They'll dump in the extra 5 sets of bench and then wonder why they feel like shit. So it's a matter of, making sure
5 weeks later.
There are 2 different things that you can progress and periodize in quite different ways depending on the person and the phase.
And you can do a combination of these things. You could do a combination doing the exercise thing and easing it a little bit on that front, like you said, and then also just like splitting up the volume, and then maybe run that same volume, like I said, split up like for a block. So like whatever it is, whatever a block is for you, 4, 5, 6 weeks.
4.5.
And then 4, and then you think you're good, and then you get halfway through the week and go like, I'm fucked, and then you deload. Yeah, that's a pretty common one as well. But you can do that and then literally see how it went. And so how you would gauge how it went would be, obviously, you could use objective measures, E1RMs, stuff like that, but then also just like how it feels, how confident you feel in your press, how consistent your technique is, like how fast it's moving, I don't know, like lots of other like little factors like that. But there are both objective and subjective measures you can have a look at and go like, is this better than what it was before? And do I feel like more beat up? Do I feel more fatigued by it? It's usually you can ask somebody, even if they have absolutely no idea about any of this stuff, and they'll be able to tell you whether it feels better or worse.
Well, that's That's something that gives me the shits. And when you said yes, actually making sure you're marking progression, so many people think that when you add an extra exposure, it's like a graduation. It's like, oh yeah, I'm no longer a 2-bench pleb, I'm a 3-bench Chad. And now they refuse to give up that extra day of bench because they think it's going backwards. Yeah. Even if all objective measures are saying, hey, I feel like arse, maybe head on back. Frequency isn't necessarily a mark of a more advanced athlete or a more advanced trainer.
And that's why I use training dose as like that's why I use that word, is because it's like training dose is a sum of a mixture of your volume and your frequency and your intensity, your exercise selection, your total stimulus that's going into the body that you're going to recover from and hopefully move forward from. That's why we use those words. Yeah, going less frequency or more frequency is not indicative of progression. It's just it's one tool in the toolbox that might help or might not help.
And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like if you're in a period of very low stress and you can fit in the extra work, fit it in.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Great. But once the stress comes back, maybe pull it back a bit.
I've definitely had people where we've pulled back and got better results from it, for sure. Gone both ways. Like I said before, like phasing it, like in an off season where comps aren't there, I'll usually just bench once a week and it'll be like a few sets and I'm pretty happy with that. Like that's enough benching for me. And then I'll do lots of dumbbell pressing, lots of machine pressing, whatever, other sorts of pressing that are pretty similar. And then in a prep, I found that 3 times works plenty good for me. So like, yeah, it's certainly not when I get to my off season, we go back to 1 bench. I'm like, oh damn, going backwards. It's just a different intent, a different stimulus, a different focus.
I'm now a novice again.
Yeah, it's just a different focus. I'm focusing more on my other shit, on growing and enjoying training and stuff like that, beating up my joints less. And
just to clarify, when you do go down to 1 bar bench, your bench doesn't instantly decrease to 100 kilo max? This is not how that works?
No.
Because I thought that's how it worked. As soon as you lose any meaningful volume, you just lose all your gains.
What else have we got here is like pitfalls. Issues.
Notice how he just completely disregarded.
I know he just continued.
This is
talking.
like having a conversation. This is my life.
I'm just trying to go to the next thing. We don't need fancy segues for every topic.
It's just really entertaining.
I thought he wrapped it up nicely. I was like, okay, we'll leave it at that.
He just paused and okay, what's next?
Yeah. You do it to me all the time. You're like, yeah, and it's funny.
You wrapped it up well. There's no reason to add on. I don't have anything, so we're going to the next thing, all right?
Okay.
As is. Deal with it. But let's common pitfalls.
We've lost Zach.
I actually think you've already mentioned a couple of these common pitfalls, like making sure you're measuring progression and not just viewing changing frequency as a progression or regression. Looking at the actual markers of progression, like we've talked about.
Empirical data.
Yeah, and those markers change through different phases. Hypertrophy phase, measuring your bicep and every single day and just watching it grow mil by mil. And then
like watching paint dry.
Yeah,
I wonder if there's somebody out there who measures a bicep every day, just sweating over the small increments. Probably.
You would absolutely hate your life you'd just hate yourself essentially because after you've trained biceps you get inflammation and it get bigger and then the next day it's smaller and you're just like, oh my god, that's a good lesson on why you just don't over measure shit. Same with your weight. If you're measuring your weight every single day and then you think that you've made a mistake because your weight's changed up or down and not in the direction that you want it to go, it's not a big deal because there are other factors at play. But yeah, that not actually measuring progression in the right way, viewing it in the wrong way, viewing frequency as a progression. Is there any other factors that you want to bring up or pitfalls that people make? I feel like the biggest one's just going too hard too fast.
Well, that's the thing. We kind of mentioned it before that if you have the higher frequency, you can't have the dial turned up to 10 for every single one of those exposures. And that does come hand in hand with pretty much everything regarding training. You can't be redlining all the time. And if your intent is to redline all the time, you'll have quite a short stint in the sport.
I know when we say stuff like, hey, put your bench frequency up in the same volume but higher frequency, and then slowly add volume after that, and then measure what happens and change decisions based. It sounds like a slow like a slow process, and people just want to not do that and just kind of like, no, fuck it. I think 3 is better. I'm going to do that. Like it. I understand like where you're coming from. I understand that it sounds like a slow process, and it's because it is. It is a very slow process. We are training
is
here.
The slowest, most boring sport to ever exist.
Just like you can't measure your bicep every day and just watch it just explode with gains.
Girth.
It's like your hypertrophy is really fucking slow. Strength gain is really fucking slow once you get to a certain point. So yes, these progressional changes are very slow to be in line with that slow change that your body's coming.
It's funny because I was speaking to one of my clients who I have at the gym the other day, and her previous best bench was 40, and we trained for 8 hard weeks, and she did a 40 kilo double. Nice. And she was like, it wasn't more. And just the act of trying to explain you did twice as much is something that people don't always get, especially in the more beginner territory. Like,
yeah.
And then I was explaining that I hadn't had a PR on squat, bench, or deadlift for like 6 years.
Only because you don't do it.
Yeah, but also it's like there can be PR droughts.
Yeah, it is slow. Yeah.
It's a very slow thing, and the same thing, like, yes, I can be dunking now and doing all this dumb shit, but the chances are in 2 years, if I wanted to, I could be back on the platform in a very similar place to where I left.
We would like that. Will and I were actually talking about this the other day as we were doing a drive up to Brisbane about Zac's potentials and your hidden skills or hidden strengths,
I think it'd be cute if you did another comp and you wore a headband.
It'll get there. The only problem is I have to be, like, thoroughly... engrossed is the wrong word.
Yeah, you don't
want to have to be like,
you don't half-ass it.
Yeah, no. If I get like when eventually when I get re-entertained by it, but right now I figured out I can walk for as long as I want to.
Wow.
Like there's no limit to the distance that I can walk now, and that's kind of cool.
Without back pumps or calf cramps.
Yeah, it's fucking. I was walking. I was just like,
incredible.
Hold on.
Peak athletic performance here. This is
keep,
the guy hitting dunks.
Just keep walking.
I bet Michael Jordan's out there going like, fuck you. Hey, guys.
This is it. This is it. Are you jealous, Will? Are you envious of his walk?
Incredible.
I remember when I couldn't do that. That was pretty chuffed.
You're big boy. Back in your big boy days, your national champion days.
Technically. Nah, I'm not technically still the national champion. They had another nationals, didn't
anymore.
they?
You're not.
Damn.
You got renounced.
It was a good 4 years
straight.
straight.
Make a comeback,
probably the longest standing national champion.
I feel like we should actually, Zac, give everyone an insight as to how strong you actually are, because everyone's just like, oh yeah, this fucking Zac kid, like whatever. Actually give everyone an insight.
Was it 8? Was it 8?
I'm trying to toot your horn here.
8:15?
I'm trying to toot your horn here.
Put your biggest numbers out, and we'll do. And
well, in comp, it was 330, 165, 315 at.
Not bad.
Was I 20 or 19?
19.
What was your deadlift? Sorry.
315.
That's 810.
Yep.
810 at 19 years old.
National champion.
National champion.
Unbeaten for 3 years.
We don't actually tell. That was a few years ago. Zac is no longer 19, just so everyone's aware.
It's pretty funny because whenever I'm at the gym, I dress like I'm homeless because I like really baggy, really comfortable clothes. And I wore a singlet and like short pants to the gym the other day, and everyone looked shocked that I actually have muscle. It's like people forget that I lift.
Wow, what an absolute cliffhanger!
Well, it was a fantastic confidence boost. Like, oh, you're huge. It's like, nice.
I don't know whether that's going to come out on the recording or not. You just dropped out for a second for us. But
that's super upsetting.
It's good enough. I didn't hear it, so if anyone wants to fill me in, if it does work on the podcast, that'd be great.
Tell us what are the compliments that Zac got. Yeah, I just feel like you should toot your own horn a little bit there, Zachary, as to the strengths. Like a 330 squat, that's fucking impressive. We won't talk about the bench, but even a 315 deadlift.
I mean, I did bench 170. I don't know what happened there. I did bench 170. That was like 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
3-plate king.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Those are some solid numbers. You should be proud of that, and you should definitely make a return to the powerlifting platform.
900.
It'll come.
Yeah, let's go 850.
Fucking
850, easy.
I reckon my arsehole would fall out.
For an 850? No,
Your maxes are always your max. That's the thing, is that you always think you always think that like that's the peak, and you're like, man, that number just seems extreme, and then you do it, and you're like, oh yeah.
Will and I talked about this the other day. We were saying like how Zac has so much untapped potential, and he'd love to be able to start actually coaching you again more seriously to get back into powerlifting. And once you finish your dunks,
Yeah, once you hit that
You're
360,
you're donking. Once you finish donking around with your dunks, hit Will up and he'll get you your 850, mate.
Yeah.
Get him back on the platform.
keep on walking though.
Yeah, you can keep walking.
Keep walking. I don't go back to like a 1,000 step limit.
Keep walking and try and find your little lamb.
All right.
That's our challenge.
I think we're pretty
Step
done. I think we're pretty done with frequency.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the longest part, but it is just one training variable. So I don't know how much, we'll circle back. We'll come back to it eventually, touch on a few more things.
We're going to have people in the podcast DMs, the high frequency zealots. How dare you? How dare you not recommend 7 times frequency?
We didn't go against
them.
them. I'm saying it's good. Like, do it, but just like realize that that you're not superior is probably the thing.
I do have one more
Whatever
thing.
works. Okay.
I had to toot Zach's horn a little bit there because I know he'd be a butthurt if I started talking about Jordan again.
Yeah, because Jordan was way too high before. Don't bring up Jordan.
No, I'm not beating up Jordan now. I'm
God.
messaging Jordan, and
Okay.
she actually has another skill. She can do the worm like really
wow.
fucking well. We filmed this actually, so she can also do the worm. Zach, can you do the worm? Can you spin on your
reckon I
head
could.
like with those break
Any,
dances?
No, I could do the worm. I can't spit on my head.
All right, let's get a video of Zach doing the worm.
Should I do it now?
That's at the Christmas party. No, that's
Can
at the
you-
Christmas party.
I can do it right now.
It's Christmas party.
Can you?
can't.
All right.
You can't.
Yeah,
No, you
okay.
can't.
Let's give it.
No, you can't.
Oh God, he's gonna hurt
He's going
himself.
to absolutely destroy his house right here.
Is
You're
he
gonna
wearing
have to watch
pants?
the YouTube video.
He's wearing pants.
Well,
Oh
that's-
God, he's gonna put a hole. Oi! He's gonna hit. He's doing it on the spot.
enough.
Well done.
I'll take that.
Yeah, give him a thumbs up,
It's a
Will.
slightly more athletic version of it than what I could do.
Did I do it?
Yeah,
I mean,
well
does that
done.
count?
That's actually impressive, mate.
Pretty good.
Really
Yeah,
impressive.
I'm an athlete.
Jesus.
That
All
kind of
right.
hurt my hamstring, but that's all right.
So now,
Tore my hamstring. Still athletic.
well now, Jordan, putting it out. You gotta up one Zach on the. Can you play the recorder, Zach?
I can play the violin and the trumpet.
Can you actually?
Yeah.
And we're having a band. We're
Jesus.
starting a band. We're starting a
I'm a
band and a
musical boy.
circus. Circus and band coming soon.
Yeah, I can play the trumpet. I'm great on blowing on things.
Oh God.
Great.
Yep. Okay,
Excellent.
let's
All
end
right,
it
we'll
there.
end it there. Good one.
All right.
Fucking hell. Red hot. Thank you for listening to Nexus Unloaded. Be sure to jump on our website to find details on everything mentioned on today's podcast, plus information on our coaching, mentoring, and gym services. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at NexusPerformance.Aus for any updates on what we are currently doing. See you all in the next episode.